On this episode of Gas Station Cappuccino, it's GSC Between Sets with Zach Even-Esh. Zach is the underground strength coach. He has been around the community in CrossFit, kettlebells, weightlifting, powerlifting, college strength conditioning for 30 years. All right, you're going to want to hear this. The guy's got great information, and it's super interesting. All right, welcome to Gas Station Cappuccino Between Sets with Zach Even-Esh. So Zach is the founder of Underground Strength Gym in New Jersey, which is right by the tracks. You got to cross the train tracks to get in there. You got to keep them fast in their game of Frogger there. And he's also a strength conditioning coach for different college wrestling teams, previously at Lehigh and I believe most recently at Rutgers. Is that right, Zach?
Yeah, man. When you came out to visit, I think or when you guys were doing that tour, I was at Lehigh. It's like, I was just thinking that. I was like, man, this Father Time is undefeated. It is waiting for nobody. It was like 5 years ago, though. I was like, holy crap.
Yeah, how long have you been at Rutgers?
Well, I was at Rutgers for like a year and a half. I started there I remember getting the phone call like right before or right after Christmas. And they're like, strength coach left. We need you. I'm like, okay, when? They're like, in 2 days.
Tomorrow.
Yes, yesterday. So that I started in January of 2017. So I came in the middle of the season. I did that semester or that half year. And then I did a whole next year. So I was there for like a year and a half. So like, it's 2020 now. It's a blur. So it must have been like the winter of 2017 till the end of spring 2018. So that's kind of how like both of those college wrestling positions,
right,
or those strength positions opened up for me. Was the coaches knew me and I didn't apply for jobs. It all came through phone calls, people reaching out to me. So it was interesting. As
far as college wrestling goes, Lehigh and Rutgers, those are not exactly slackers either.
Tops. Yeah. When I was at both of them, when I was at Rutgers, we may have cracked top 10. When I was at Lehigh, they were 9th, they were 8th, and both teams had national champs, All-Americans. And yeah, man, it's amazing when you're around this high level where everybody in the room, it would be like going into a weightlifting gym where everybody's like, they won like their region, they're like, top ranked in the country, and just everybody around you is either there to take your spot and or make you better. And it's this weird dichotomy of how am I going to get better? I got to be around people that want to kick my ass.
When I first started at Cal Strength, lifting California Strength, I joined the team. They had 2 national champions on the team at the time. And they were in weight classes right next to each other also, right? Yeah. And that was the environment. It was supportive. Everyone's on the same team, but the way it was supportive is a little different than what's more common now. Whereas it was, you're going to go grab, say you miss a lift and you go to take a second attempt. Instead of like, come on, you got it. It's like, quit wasting everyone's fucking time. You're not good enough. You're not strong enough. What are you doing? What are you doing? Yes. Right, go home. Fuck that. Try again tomorrow. Just try tomorrow. You're not good enough yet. Right?
I miss that, dude.
And then
there needs to be more of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I remember one time there's this like 17-year-old kid, and he was good. He was like, top, 5 in the nation or so. And he missed a lift, and he was kind of down on himself. And Coach Spitz said, it's like, Ian, quit acting disappointed. You're not fooling anybody.
Oh, beautiful.
Oh, shit.
When you've coached for a while, you could kind of see through that when people are like, when they legitimately care, or sometimes guys are tough and then they lose their edge. Like a life thing happens, a relationship thing happens, something comes and they let that take it away from them. But dude, what Dave's saying, he's like, you ain't fooling anybody. And I did a podcast, a Q&A before this morning. So this morning through Instagram, and there was a few of those questions about how do you get somebody to turn the corner? What happens? What do you do when somebody isn't fired up? How do you get them fired up? And I think to myself, quote, back in the day, I'd be like, you don't want it. Like, just get the fuck out. Like, go to, everything was an F you, get the F out of here. And I think being a dad, like, made me become this, like, different coach where I'm just going to, all right, I'm going to give you a little piece of kind of encouragement. I'm going to let you turn the corner. I'm going to help you. But the stuff I used to say to kids, and I didn't give anybody a second chance. And when I look at that, it's like, you know, we all need a second chance, especially when you're a kid. You're an idiot, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think it depends on the person too. I know I've had the experience where, so I'm in that environment and then I'm lifting with somebody who's not on the team. And we were actually like on this travel thing anyway, and he's about to go and he missed a lift or whatever. And so I kind of start pulling that on him. Like I pretend like we're in Cal Strength, and even though he's not on the team, and I start kind of getting into him a little bit. Yeah. And I saw him just shrivel in his seat. And I was like, okay, like mental note, like that doesn't work with him. Like, so he needs something. He needs somebody sitting there like, you know, slapping his ass. Let's go. You got this. Right. And that's what fires him up. You know, he doesn't have that. He's not used to being motivated that way. Some people, you know, they react differently to different motivations.
Well, that's so uncommon for this younger generation that when they are in their 20s or 30s, they haven't experienced that. They don't get it. So ironically, you know, what you guys are saying is, it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was flipping out on the athletes. So we train predominantly high school, but then you have a few middle school kids. And then in the summer, we have a lot of college kids. And so one of our this one kid just graduated college. He's a savage, and just we're attacking stuff. And I'm like, guys, I am so sick of this shit energy. I go, you know what? I'll burn this fucking gym down. And I said, I don't care. It's not even an accident. I go ahead, record it. I'm like, call the cops on me. So the one kid, Jimmy, he's like, he means it. He's going to burn it down. I'm like, you guys, you could go for an hour and you don't even say anything to anybody. You could be struggling on a squat and they don't even stay with me. Or it's like, I tell them, I go, what are you going to text? You're going to text the guy? You need to talk. So then we start talking about it. Smack talk is what we always did. So I was like, that's all right, guys. I was like, you know what? Don't worry about it. You guys could suck. It's all right to suck. You guys could suck. I'm not going to, but you could suck. And then I was like, when you're done with this, why don't you go home and have your vegan soy protein shake? Why don't you get some? Like we were smack talking. Me and Jimmy were smack talking these kids. And we're telling them, we're like, guys, this is normal. Smack talk back. Let's go.
Yeah.
They could not do it. And then he's like, they can't. He's like, those soy vegan anti-testosterone shakes took the smack talk out. They could not come back at us. It just blew my mind. I was like, guys, this is part of the fun. You have to talk when you're training. And so we have one kid. He just started college last week. He comes in. He's like, let's fucking go. He's like flipping out. And everybody's like, I go, guys, that was actually normal 10, 15, 20 years ago. That was the normal kid. You guys that say zip for an hour.
You're the weirdos.
Yeah, you're weird, man. Like, let's go. And what's really interesting is that now you preempt everything with, you know, so by the way, also, like, I'll jump around a lot with my ADD. So last year, I got hired as a full-time strength coach at a public school. So when I would have to preempt technique feedback in the group and say, guys, if I give you feedback about squatting deeper or go lighter on the bench or anything, I still love you. Don't get offended. Don't take it personal. I'm getting you better. But don't get all upset when I tell you to squat deep. It doesn't mean I hate you or anything like that. But that's how they take it. And so I kind of dug into a little bit of that book, The Coddling of the American Mind. I didn't read it in full. Our mutual friend, John Wellborn, wrote it as listed as one of the top books to read. And just reading it's like, yeah, I knew that. I've been in teaching since 98. You were a former teacher. You started in the 90s when you were teaching, right, Danny?
Early 2000s.
Early 2000s. So that 08 time, 2010, that's when I feel like there was a shift.
Yeah.
And basically the book says it's how people perceive things. I'm walking through, we're walking through Wadapalooza and you bump into me and then somebody interviews me and I'm like, Danny does not like me. He bumped me. He doesn't like me. And they would probably be like, dude, it's crowded, number one. Number two, he probably didn't recognize you. He was probably running to do one of his 100 things. Oh, no, he bumped into me. And
it was a personal affront. Yeah.
And that's how they wrote, was like, how are people perceiving, this generation perceives things differently. And look, when you're in the weight room, in the gym, in the garage gym, wherever you train, you need to have that alter ego. You got to flip the switch.
Yeah.
You got to become, whoever, like you become the Punisher.
Do you ever think, you mentioned kind of, maybe since you had kids, I know, so I have two daughters, a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old. And I know that early on, there's a few times where I'd kind of like snap on them or something, and then it just didn't. Like you start raising your voice, and it's like, oh, that just doesn't help at all. They just completely lose their shit. Anyway, I often think, I'm like, man, if I coached wrestling now, I wonder if my teams would be as good as they were. Like, would I just be soft? Like, would we not be as good? Because I think part of what made me a good coach was that I kind of got something out of these kids that other people couldn't, because I was hard on it, right? Yeah. And so it's like, am I just fucking soft now? Would we be awful? Do you ever think about though?
Like, about it all the time. And it's frustrating. And I actually am still in touch with my high school coach. When he coached us, he was the assistant. He was finishing college. So he was a college wrestler. He brought a level of intensity that was just insane. And he's like, Zach, we do not train like that anymore. Because we have to train. Then we let them do it a little bit on their own. Then I have to take a break, tell them a story, let them rest, get drinks. So my son was this week or last week. It's been hot it's been hot, 90s, humid. He plays baseball. He finished practice, and there was a kid next to him. My son just turned 12, so that kid's 11 or almost 12. And he's like, oh, my God. He's like, I forgot my water. And I go, tough it out.
Yeah.
I'm like talking to an 11-year-old.
Fine.
Yeah, it's fine. So then my son was like, man, another practice. He's like, no, we left my gym. He's like, Dad, can I drink your water? I'm like, can we go to 7-Eleven to get water? I'm like, here's water. He's like, that water's been sitting in your car. It's warm. I'm like, Ethan, I had wrestling practice 2.5 hours, no water break, 7-pound weight loss. And it's like, my son he doesn't want to live that life. And it has to, that environment, it has to become somebody's norm. And so their normal is very different than how we were raised. And so when they come in and experience a weight room, like early days, Cal Strength, or even my early days at the Underground, the kids that I'm still in touch with, I call them kids, they're like 30, 31 now. They're like, guys, you never would have survived. They're like, Zach fucking killed us. He killed us. You guys wouldn't have survived shit.
Well, we were in like 2 weeks ago. It was like a hot streak, and it was like fucking 107, right?
Where are you guys in
Sacramento? Yeah.
Oh,
Sacramento.
We're near Mark's Mellow Bell. It gets hot up there, like 110, right?
Hot. Right. And so that, average summer days like in the 90s, 98, 96, somewhere around there. We'll get a streak of 105, 110 degree days, like 4 or 5 days, whatever. So it was the middle of this hot streak, and gyms can't be inside because COVID. We got to work out outside, and so. The thing is, we're out there, and so people are showing up to class still, and some people like whatever. It's like, man, I can't believe some people showed up, and it's like 107, whatever. It's like you're in the shade, and there's no humidity, so it's like it's really not that bad. But I'm like, man, we are just so fucking soft. Like air conditioning in buildings. What was it, like the 50s when they actually started putting air conditioning like in houses, like the 1950s or something?
Somewhere in that like early to mid. I actually looked it up.
Yeah. And so I'm like, you know what? So the entire history of mankind up until like 60 years ago, if it was hot outside, it's just fucking hot. Like you're telling me like, Native Americans that lived in this area, like, oh guys, it's over 100. We're not hunting today. No, don't go gather. We're not gathering today. It's too fucking hot. Guys, lay down.
We will intermittent fast. Put your ketones. Yeah. Put your ketones.
Put your feet in the stream, get in the shade. Let's just all, like it's just so crazy. Or even other countries around the world, like just central air conditioning is something we just take for granted and act like, oh my God, it's 100 degrees. How am I going to exercise outdoors at 100 degrees?
We take everything for granted. And somebody, I can't remember who, we get so much information coming our way.
Is it okay to work out when it's hot? It's like,
can we do that?
Just
be prepared. Drink water.
Dude, listen, crazy shit happens. Like, we're on the text change for baseball games. And so we got rain, this and that. And one of the parents said, I'm at the field now and it's windy. Can we postpone? Boy. So I was like, I know. Oh boy, it's windy. Like, holy hell. What do we do now? Do we just hide? And I think, look, this whole COVID has really, the media has pushed you to hide and be a chicken shit. And God forbid you fight back. And so, I have so many fun stories. My son he had a game Sunday afternoon, evening. We went and played a 16-hole, what's it called? Like pitch and putt golf. I'm not a golfer, but my son's kind of like, he gets into it. He studies it. So we went. It was a little crowded. It's 16 holes. So the lady said, there's a family of 6 in front of you. Start like reverse. Go to the 16th hole, then the 15th hole. So we go. We're on the 16th hole. We hit it. Boom. We get it in. And my son's like keeping the score on the paper. And there's one guy. He's on the where he's supposed to hit the golf ball. I don't even know what it's called. He's on the driving area.
The tee box.
He's like this. It's like this. He waves his hand and he's like this. I'm like, we just finished. So I'm like, relax. We're moving. So then he's like, does it again. And he shouts something about like keeping the score. We're there for a couple seconds. So I like lose my shit. I'm like the guy in Mike Nicholson falling down. I'm starting to become that guy. So I say to him, what were the words? I think I called him a jerk off and a loser. I tried not to curse in front of my son, and there's a lot of people out. So I go, chill out, you jerk off. I go, pat yourself on the back for being a loser. You're complaining about a kid. And he's like staring at me. He said, pat yourself on the back. I'm like demanding that he actually hits himself on the back. I go, make sure when you go home, you tell your friends that you complained about a kid, you loser, jerk off. And like people are staring at me. My son has seen me like once in a blue moon do that because I feel like people can be assholes and you have to stand up. You have to sometimes tell people, bro, shut the F up. I'm not doing anything wrong here. Yeah. And so sometimes you have people who have kind of complained and gotten their way by being kind of adult bullies to people. Yeah. And it's like the kid bully. The kid bully will bully other kids till somebody punches him in the face.
Yep. Yeah.
And it's it bothers me, man.
And people, maybe someone see that and they'd be like, well, why is Zach getting all worked up? Why is he acting like that towards that guy? Right? Like, it's okay to be the guy who's like,
that's right,
being a silent dick about it. Right.
I'm the bad guy. I'm the bad guy. He's like, we finished not 5 seconds. My son's he's flagging us. He's saying, move, don't keep score right there. It's his last hole. He's on the 16th hole. He's done. And it's like, once you do so, to me, I have an issue when people, especially do bad things with 2 kids. Yeah. Then, bro, now you're on my dark side. Now we got a problem. And so, yeah, the way we speak to people has to change. You don't get the same effect. And also, as they get older, then it's very different. People get used to having their way. So, we have 2 locations. The one that you were in is, in the Jersey Shore area. The other one is considered North Jersey, which is a different, group of people. A lot of those people work in the city. It's a very hustle bustle. And one of the adults, we train adults there. And one of the adults emailed and was like, yeah, I like Jim a lot. But I don't like those kids. They're kind of annoying. And I'm thinking to myself, who the fuck says that? Who says the kids are annoying? So I just, emailed him back and copied our general manager. And I was like, hey, sorry you feel that way about the kids. We're going to cancel your membership. I didn't even let him get to the point where he would say, if you could do this, I'll do that. Like, I'm never paint myself into the corner where my back's against the wall. I always want to be able to say, peace out, and I'm just thinking of kind of you have Caffeine and Kilos, you have the gym, and it's like, I like having these more than one business kind of things happening, because you're never, with the gym, you're never like, I have to take John Smith or Smith's money for the rent, even though they're rude to people, they don't clean up, they, piss all over the toilet seat all the time. You never want to be in that position. That's why I love the kind of multiple streams of income type business. So I could always say, look, all right, maybe it's not for you. I used to just say, get the F out, blah, blah, blah. Now it's like, if it's a kid, I'll say, listen, I've tried speaking with him multiple times. He's struggling to be coachable. He's struggling to be on time. He doesn't schedule. He doesn't cancel. I'm considering we take a break for a year. Maybe he'll be ready in a year. What would you like to do? So I leave it in the court of the parents. And I always say, I don't feel good about accepting your money when he's disrespecting your money. He cancels half. So back in the day, I wasn't that level-headed. I was more just like very cutthroat. You're either in or not.
Curious, what'd your son say on the golf course to you?
Oh, he didn't say anything. And I tell you what, I told him, I go, Ethan, you don't take shit from anybody, because if you do, people start, and he's seen that happen before, like years ago. So today I took my dog to the vet. She's almost 8. When we got her, my dog it's a Doberman. She's so energetic and crazy that I used to not run her. She'd pull me on the bike. That's how she would get her exercise. She'd pull me. So she would pull me around the block 6 times. It's 2 miles. Yeah. And there's a guy on the corner of our block, and I knew it was going to happen. People walk their dogs and don't clean up after them. Not me. I'm crazy with that stuff. But he came out one day. I was walking her with my son and daughter. So that's 7 years ago. My daughter's turning 14 tomorrow. My daughter's 7. My son's 5, just turned 5. He starts trying to blame me for the dog crap. I bug out on him. I'm screaming back at him. He tried getting loud, and I got right back in his face and basically, told him to shut the F up. So then we go home, and of course my kids tell my wife. It's had to explain rule number 1, that when we're on a little bit of a bro trip, sometimes you can't tell mommy everything.
Mom doesn't need to know. She doesn't need to know. Stay on the trip.
Yep. But they had seen me do those things, and I don't know where that comes from. I almost feel like that kind of vigilante attitude inside of me. And then it happened when I opened my gym in this town. The neighbor would flip out and bang steel pipes against the door and scream and curse. And he would do it to all the people until I said something. And I remember when I was flipping out on him, the mechanics were all lined up against the wall watching. They never would say anything. And it's guys, there's really no legit reason for somebody to treat somebody else like shit. Be nice. If you can't be nice, then all right, then we're gonna have a problem. I don't hurt people. I don't beat people up. I don't do that. But I let them know what you're doing is wrong. Like the guy at the golf course, you're screaming to me and complaining about a kid. You can't wait 5 seconds, bro.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
So, vigilante, undergroundvigilante.com.
So we kind of circling back to the kids that you're training. So where does say you get a new kid that comes in to the gym, do you start him with a certain routine as far as strength conditioning, or does he kind of just jump in where the other kids are at? How does that process usually go?
What I do is I've got a real kind of specific process that I've been crafting since the early days. So in the early days, I started out of my parents' garage. But when I moved to the first house we bought in 2003, then I started this kind of velvet rope process of you have to apply, then you have to go through a tryout, which is a trial. And then if you're accepted, then we go in through a beginner program. So I kind of go through these phases to build them up physically and also mentally. It's pretty interesting. Like yesterday, we had a new kid come in for his first day, and the mom's like, yeah, throw anything you want at him. He could do it. He trains with me at this gym, blah, blah, blah. But I've heard that and seen it a million times.
I'm sure.
And it's like,
well, my kid's different
all the time. And it's it's okay that they're struggling. That's why you're here, you know? And so we go through this introduction workout, and I keep it very simple. I don't make it complex. And so they do some calisthenics to just kind of orientate them with some movement and positions. Then they do the movement warm up with our guys, which kind of morphs into some jump training, some plyos, some med ball throws. So they start kind of getting their wind going and coordination. And then I take them through a real basic intro workout that I tweak it up here and there according to what I see during the warm up. But basically we'll start out, we'll do like farmer walk coupled with push-ups. Now, if there's kids that come to me that can't do push-ups, you know, where if I say back in the day, the trial was like farmer walk, squat, pull-ups, sprint that hill, come back, do this, do that. I was attracting such a unique type of kid. There was really, you know, strength coaches back then. There was Jay Ferrugia, there was Joe DeFranco. Down south, Dwayne Carlisle, who was with the San Francisco 49ers back in the day. Now he's in San Francisco, like doing private. But there was strength and conditioning was such a anomaly that I was getting some very tough kids out of the gate. Mm-hmm. Now I'm really getting a lot of kids that are struggling to do a bodyweight squat. Yesterday's kid was pretty tough, though, pretty physical. But then he had no strength endurance. So it was like after farmer walk and push-ups. Actually, we did I do farmer walk and push-ups? I think he just did farmer walk and I can't even remember, to be honest. Oh, farmer walk with sleds. That's what crushes him.
Yeah.
Farmer walk down and back, about 100 feet, 120 feet. Sled pull down and back, forwards, backwards, 60 feet each. 4 sets of that. Then it was chain push-ups with pull-ups on the rings. First set of ring pull-ups, 9 or 10 reps. Second set, 2 reps. Third set, one. Like, so strength endurance goes down. Then they start like, I'm like, dude, you don't got to get, like, you don't got to, it was almost like what Dave was like, don't fake, you know, the disappointment. If you haven't been training, this is what's going to happen.
Wow.
And yeah, this is what's going to happen. You're here so I could make you better. But I'd say 15 years ago, I'd be like, get the fuck back up. Get the fuck back up on those rings. Like, everything was like kill, fight, attack. Yeah. And now I've really learned, you know, Brett Bartholomew talks a lot about that art of coaching. It's been really interesting with so much coaching I've done to learn these intricacies that help me kind of have, I always say you need like multiple personalities in every group. Yeah. This kid can be trained with intensity and aggressiveness. This kid needs a lot of positive feedback from a technical aspect. This kid needs freedom. He's not squatting all the way down, but he wants to go heavier. So you got to like let him half squat and then throw in 2 sets of walking lunges to get the full range of motion, because he will not go lighter or he'll shut down the whole workout. So it's like, I equate it to that movie 50 First Dates with Adam Sandler. I'm like, that's how coaching is. It's like 50 first dates every session. Yeah, you have such these unique personalities. And I learned it, you know, it hit me a lot at the college level because I'm working with just wrestling.
Yeah.
But the 9 o'clock group is different than 8 a.m. Well, there's the same team, same sport. And I had to do different stuff for the same sport and same team. It was just, you know, they needed different stuff. So, you know, I have a system for what does it look like to introduce a kid into training? Where do I progress them to? And then, of course, you know, experience is your best teacher. And I look back and I say, look, I made so many mistakes as a coach in those early days. You know, I would argue with kids. I'd scream like that. Honestly, that stuff doesn't help. You know, sometimes I got to pull somebody aside and just say, look, we've been doing this for 3 months. You're still struggling on the same stuff. I'm okay if you don't want to be here. Let's maybe take a break for a year. We could call mom and dad. and then you just do stuff on your own. You do your push-ups, you do whatever you want to do. And sometimes that kid does take a break and sometimes comes back a savage, like just mature. And I remember one time a kid looked at me and said, I want to be here. And then that changed everything.
Yeah.
It was like you had to almost threaten them that you're going to take this away from them. And, and interestingly enough, this past week, my son started coming to the gym with me. And, when you're 12, I don't want a kid killing the weights. I just don't. But my son's been around the gym he's been around all my gyms. But this one, we've had 7 years. So he's 12. So he was 5 years old helping me paint the place. So he'd come in. We set up the office for my kids so they could watch TV, play board games. But then he'd come out. He'd sit on a kid's sled. The kid would push it. Kids would walk on their hands. They'd hold his ankles. He would do it. Then he'd like to with me. I deadlift. There's an old video on YouTube where it's like deadlifts with dad or something. And he's like crazy fired up. And the camera's on. He's like, look at this guy right there. Like, that's my dad. He's like, yeah. He's like screaming. He's like 7 going ballistic. Then age 10, 11, he's like, I don't want to go to your gym, Dad. That place is stupid. He's like, that place is dumb. So my wife says to me, she's like, Zach, you don't tell Ethan what to do, but let him go and do whatever the hell he wants. And I'm like, no, he's always in. He goes to the office. He wants to go into the office to drink water. Like, listen to me. I'm like, go nuts. She's like, so what? And then I remember hearing Jesse Burdick talking about training baseball players. And he was like, yeah, man, they kind of come in, hang out for 20 minutes. Then they go out back. They pull the sled a few trips. Then they hang out again. Then they bench a little bit. Then they hang out. And I'm not used to that. Danny, you're a wrestler. You're used to you're supposed to run through the wall. So he hit, and keep going. So he hit a home run on Sunday. First home run ever. Started playing baseball at age 5. He hits a home run. I swear to you, it changed his whole attitude. He came home. He ate 2 dinners. Then I saw him upstairs walking in his room with the captain of Crush Gripper. Yes. Nobody's telling him to do it. So he came to the gym this week. Today's Thursday. He came Tuesday, Wednesday. We got there a little bit early Tuesday. He went, did the workout. We use Wadify. He pulled the workout right off the board. He's throwing the med ball. He's doing trap bar deadlifts, just 95 pounds. But it's interesting. When he was 7, he was trap bar deadlifting. And I was like, don't tell mommy. She's going to tell you that you'll stop growing, all this stuff. So I let him do light stuff. The only thing I said to him was like, Ethan, do those pull aparts. Then he went to 7-Eleven. He got himself some soda. He got himself some chips. I didn't want to like, oh, you can't eat that. You can't do that. Like, he's training. Then he went in, let him do his thing. Then he came back out. Then he did more training. So he did like a double session Tuesday. He did the same thing yesterday. Normally when he's there, he's calling my dad. He's calling people to pick him up. He's trying to escape. And I think he hit that home run and he realized that if he works there, now he's realizing, like, because for 2 years, his ball was hitting the fence or hitting the ground 2 feet before the fence. He got a taste of that success. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of kids, if they don't taste success, it feels like the world is just going nowhere for them. And so it's like in wrestling, when you win your first match, then you win 2 in a row, 3 in a row, you're like, damn, I don't ever want to go back losing. I need my arm to get raised. Then you win 9 in a row, 10 in a row. You're like, all of a sudden you're like, yeah, this is normal. This is what I do. I win. And so I always wanted my kids, their normal to be hard work. And so my daughter is 14 tomorrow. She plays tennis. You know who's predominantly her coaches? Russians. And so it's all very hard, and it's a different sport. So my daughter was tough right away. Whereas my son plays baseball. He wrestled for a few years. Now he doesn't want to wrestle. Now it's some basketball. But he's coming in and training. And he's learning. The most important thing is he gets to see what other kids do. And he sees who's a worker, who's not. Yeah. And look, he's seen some weird things. We live in a beach town. And so years ago, this kid from town, we could not get tough kids from this town. And he would cancel 2 minutes before 4 o'clock. Always, always, always. So we're driving home one day at 5. Maybe my other coaches were coming in, if I recall. This is years ago. And I see the kid on his bike. And my son's like, put the window down, scream at him. He's got to, he didn't go to the gym, he says to me. So that could have been, my son could have been like 6 years old, but he knew that's wrong. You don't cancel and quit and no show and stuff like that. And what that kid was doing was he would schedule, then he would tell his parents he's riding his bike, then he'd go on the app, cancel. And the dad's, I screenshotted the attendance, and the dad's like, man, I was wrapping my head around why he wasn't sweating anymore, coming home sweaty. And I said, well, he's canceling. He's canceled all month, every session. So we're going to cancel the membership. I can't have him here. He's, wasting your money. And he says to the dad, I felt like my social life was being, interrupted. It's like twice a week, bro, for an hour. And so what's the thing there? His environment was not an environment of where you grew up in Cal Strength and how I was raised with this wrestling. And so that's the thing, is like, what's the 3 things Dan John talks about is your geography, genetics, and then what's the third thing? It's like 3 things: geography, genetics, opportunity. So opportunity, I live in Ohio, I'm in Columbus, I'm a wrestler, and I'm right near Westside Barbell. A lot of opportunity there. I have medium genetics, but I have great wrestling coaches and one of the best strength coaches in the world. Bang. Okay, but now I live by the beach. It ain't that hard here. Everything, it's going to be okay. Just get your hot chocolate and watch the sunset. It's going to be all right, guys. What my buddy Joe DeSena says about that from Spartan. You're not fighting for milk, like that movie Cinderella Man. You're not fighting for milk.
Yeah, and I think it's totally right about the environment and kind of where you're at and what, at a certain point you get this disconnection, right? And I think that's what actually one of the major lessons from sports is something you learn from sports, right? Is that
tough times.
Yeah, tough times, man. And so a couple of main things. One is that when you're bad at something, you work on it, and then you have success, right? Like it teaches you, if you practice something, if you work on something, you get better at it. So you can see that it's a tangible thing that happens, right? Like I couldn't do this, now I can. And like that lesson applies to everything in life.
Everything.
The best way to learn that is through sports or through training, right? And so then that environment side of things, you kind of get that too. It's like it's easy to get soft and kind of get comfortable. And so it's that being uncomfortable and being okay with being uncomfortable and seeing the positive things that come out of being uncomfortable.
Is your gym still a CrossFit?
Yeah, we are.
So, I got into CrossFit in those early 2000s, when it was the message board and everybody would share a photo of their garage gym, and barely anybody had a gym. I mean, barely anybody. Yeah. But every garage gym was rings, barbell, sandbag, kettlebell, and then make your own sled out of a tire. Everybody had a mountain bike and a kayak. The whole thing just screamed, comfort is the enemy.
Dude, in my garage, I had a med ball, but it made out of a basketball.
Yeah.
I took a basketball, I cut a hole in it, filled it with sand, taped that bitch up. Yeah.
The forum had all these tutorials of how to, everything was make your own stuff. Interesting how in the beginning of the COVID lockdown, all that had to come full circle because all these equipment companies, think of it. If Rogue is back ordered, Rogue usually ships in the same day. If Rogue was back ordered, you could only imagine what these other companies were going through who don't have that kind of manpower. And so that, I feel like those early 2000s, CrossFit started budding in the garages. But guess what else exploded around 06, 07 was Planet Fitness, Retro Fitness. And 2 years ago, I was running so wild with work, taking my daughter to tennis. I couldn't even train at my own gym. So I started finding gyms near my daughter's tennis abilities. And I went to one gym that was quote unquote hardcore. And I remember I was squatting. I mean, the place had like old York plates. It was painted black. there was like a dude there training a kid, and he's like throwing the physio ball at him, and they're playing dodge in the squat room. And I like recorded me working out, and my buddy's like looking at he's like, "Why are you looking in this direction?" I was like, "Dude, I must have been trying to burn a hole through the trainer with my eyes, like laser or something," because the music was crap. Now it's like everybody's got the AirPods in. The beauty of those gyms in the early days when I would train in the 90s was no AirPods, and I would become friends with you. And you would maybe teach me how to front squat. Then you would talk to me about nutrition. Then you might tell me stories. Like now nobody talks. And so I'm still trying to build that old school environment in my gym. And even through like any of the online stuff I do is I feel that's a very life-changing, it's just a life-changing process, training a certain way, pushing yourself, training with this kind of minimalist environment, minimalist equipment, yet really maximizing your gains from all that. Yeah. It has a carryover to your life. And so I also try to encourage that with my kids. It's like, you cannot wait for me to do baseball stuff with you outside. You want to go, I tell my daughter, I go, Summer, sometimes when you're playing tennis, I'm like, I can't play against you. I want to pay the people next to me $10 to play against you and see who could win. Like searching for Bobby Fischer when he would bet on his son to just throw them to the wolves. Like, can you guys play 2 against 1 and see if you can beat my daughter? Because
Andre Agassi. And that kind of intensity, that challenge, it now shapes you. And now you start seeking out tough times. And I think, speaking of wrestling, I follow it so much. You see these big weight rooms being built, like, multi-million-dollar facilities. And I don't necessarily think that it's not going to make them better wrestlers.
You're not all of a sudden now a top 20 team or top 10. Same thing in football. Some of the universities that have the most expensive facilities are not even in the top 20.
Well, I'll tell you this is interesting, and I know you have a lot of experience around college weight rooms, but we were on that tour, actually. We ended up at the LSU weight room, or on a different trip, we're at LSU. That one we ended up at Ole Miss. So Ole Miss, LSU, I mean, you're talking, it doesn't get much bigger than that as far as...
Who was at Ole Miss when you were there?
Paul Jackson.
Oh, yeah, he's at USC.
He just got there. Then also there was Joey Graciano, and he was out at Colorado State.
Oh, now he's at Florida Atlantic.
And now he's at Florida Atlantic, right? So those guys and some other guys too. They had a great crew out there. And so the thing is, you go there, either one of those schools, LSU or Ole Miss, great weight room as far as like new facility. But you know what they do? They squat, they deadlift, they do snatches, they do cleans. It's like they do all the classic stuff. And it's the loudest music I've ever heard in a weight room was at Ole Miss training with the strength coaches. And it was you couldn't talk. Like me and dude could barely hear. It was so fucking loud. And then there's Archie Manning on a bike in the corner. But these guys just there to throw down, and everyone's just hitting these heavy squats, power cleans, just getting after it. Yeah. And it's like and those are the people that are good. Everyone thinks, these, top 5, top 10 schools, they must be in there doing single leg squats and a Basu ball, like all this bullshit. It's like, no, they're not. Like what the schools that are actually getting it done are doing it old school methods. They're doing squats and they're doing cleans and they got Iron Mind videos on the TV screens at LSU while they're training.
Coach Ethan Reed used to do that when he was at Wake Forest. He'd have the training hall. Yeah, he was going, and that actually helps kids visualize. The tough thing for being at the private sector is I could have a group with a kid who's been with me 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah.
Another kid who's been with me 5, 6, 7 weeks. And so you want to dial everybody in on cleans and this and that, but you have to have a lot of stuff going on.
Right.
But, there's I'm still learning as a coach. That's the cool thing. So
yeah,
I haven't really gotten into it much, this kind of topic, but the thing that always pissed me off, front squats and cleans, because it took time. And I'm like, I would get emotionally frustrated with hearing my wrist, my this, my that. And so when this COVID thing started happening, I was the only guy running my gym. Okay. We're doing these small groups. I don't have my coaches on because we're on such like minimal amount of members. And I was like, we're front running every day. It's in the warm up now. Now it's in the warm up. And it's like Dave Tate spoke about, like in the beginning of a lift, teaching a lift, they're shit. Then they go to suck. Then they go to like bad. Then they're like average. And it's like this whole thing. And it's really, can you handle it as a coach to see the shit and the suck? You know it's going to get better.
Because that's what it takes.
Right. So, you know, when I was younger, what did we hear a lot of these West Side guys do? It's too complicated to teach the clean. It's too complicated to teach Olympic lifts, you know, power lift. It's really not that complicated. But once somebody gets very big and bulky, oh yeah, front squats are now much tougher. We've got middle school kids, 8th graders, 7th graders front squatting with just a bar. All I've done was 2 sets of 5 reps or 3 by 5 sometimes with the bar. That's the warm up. And now every Friday we could do cleans and clean complexes. Why? Because I finally emotionally said to myself, Jesus Christ, just can we do the shit front squats for a little bit and then go to the suck? And once we got through the suck, we started doing the cleans. And I just like, in my mind, I was like, thank God. And now when I see them front squatting, I tell them, I'm like, guys, this looks MFing beautiful. It just makes, it's beautiful to me when I see you front squatting, because I'm looking at you front squat with a bar or 10 pounds on it. But in 5 years, that's going to be 225. Yeah. And you're going to be, 80 pounds heavier.
I think that also, a lot of times stuff like that comes to expectations. Like if you expect it to be hard and you expect them not to be able to do it, they're not going to.
You're
if you
right.
expect like, okay, it's going to be ugly for a few days, but it's going to like turn around quicker than you think. And that's just the normal. That's the expectation. Then people will rise to meet those expectations. I'm talking like Corey Gregory. He's out there training training powerlifting stuff. And they squat every day. They front squat like 4 days a week. And these guys come there to be like power lifters. And it's like, all right, we front squat 3-4 days a week. And the guys just do it. They just do it.
No
one says, oh, I can't get in the right position. Oh, this is too hard. They see everyone else doing it. They fucking figure it out.
It's the environment.
It's expectations.
Corey pulled that from going to West Side, and then he implanted it at his, old school gym. And that's the ticket is with these, when you're training people for performance, you need the army. You need people on the same page. And, I had a meeting today before my daughter's doctor with our gym up north. And we've had a tent outside. And that tent was $5,000. And I said to my partner, he's like, should we survey people? Do we keep the tent? I'm like, Dave, we ain't fucking doing a survey about a tent. Governor Murphy said we can get back into the gyms, 25%. Everything that's really been about the underground has been about being uncomfortable. And if somebody's going to cry about a tent outside, then we got the wrong person here, So we're going back inside. We train outside with the sleds and whatever else we want to do in the farmer walks. But we're getting rid of this tent. It was a $5,000 tent. I don't want it. That's it. Cut the tent, dude. It's gone. The end of August, it's out.
Yeah. What do you? Let's put it this way. This kind of a awkward way to ask it sometimes, but it is what it is. So why aren't you better? Like, why aren't you a better coach? What do you need to do to be better?
Myself personally or other?
Yeah, you. Why aren't you better?
Why aren't I better? I think that one thing, like I spoke about with the front squats, is like, it sucks so bad. They have to go through it, but emotionally, you're like, I just can't see it. And there's been times where I would teach the front squat or I'd put it in for, a mini cycle of 2 to 3 weeks. And there would always be kids. I can't do it. All right, let's just back squat. Now I say, hey, what do you play? What's your sport? Hockey. Do you ever see 5-year-olds skating? You remember what it's like when you put ice skates on the first time? What did it look like? Shit. Mm-hmm. Then it went to suck. We're going to be shit for this first week. Next week, we're going to suck. And so I felt, to me, I look back, I look back and I say that was my own internal argument with myself, is I just wanted to move. I wanted to bypass, a barbell. I wanted to get weight on this kid. The other thing I'm going to say is environment. When I got into strength and conditioning, really the first kind of powerful stuff I came across was Elite FTS, which was my introduction to Westside Barbell. Back then, Louis was so against Olympic lifting that I even remember when I went to speak at Wake Forest the year before, it was Louis speaking, it was Gail Hatch, and it was Pavel. And Coach Reeves said to me, like, this half, so there was like an aisle down the middle. He's like, this half of the weight room, powerlifters. This half, weightlifters. He's like, the kettlebell guys were just happy to be alive. And so he says, like, Louis, Gail Hatch presents first, and he had like a kid demonstrating. Kid gets, a young kid, I think they said he was something, like a late teenager. And he gets under 315, and they think he's going to front squat it. But instead, he like jerks the weight up. Then he like goes down into an overhead squat with it, adjusts his feet in the bottom, then comes out of the hole. Okay, teenager. The next day, Louis gives his presentation, and or the next morning, everybody's out to eat breakfast. Coach Reeves says, Louis goes up to him and he goes, Ethan, weightlifters are weaker than the Sunday newspaper. Like he said some like strange quote like that is what I remember. So Louis does his presentation, and he said Louis was so pissed after the presentation. He had like notes. Louis, whenever he would present, just had paper. He doesn't do no PowerPoint. He left his glasses there. He's like, they all left. It was like all the big guys, like the original crew. They had like Cadillacs and shit. He's like, Louis left. He didn't even stay for a dinner. And so I fell into all that. There was not a lot of weightlifting resources. There was, CrossFit was kind of teaching stuff in those early 2000s. You did not have videos from, no barbell shrug technique, quad, cal strength, none of that. Weightlifting was like it was still very underground. You couldn't find anybody who could do it. And you know what's so crazy too is
Gail Hatch was it. Gail Hatch was responsible for getting weightlifting into college strength conditioning programs.
And so did he have a website in 2003 or exactly? You know what I'm saying? So one time I was going to go to a weightlifting seminar, it was 2003. And do you know Mike Mahler, the kettlebell guy?
Yeah, I'm familiar. Yeah.
Early days, he was the first guy I learned kettlebells from. I helped him find a location in New York City to do his seminar, and it was going to be done with Christian Thibodeau. Christian was going to do the Olympic lifting seminar there, and Christian bailed. So it was going to be my opportunity to learn weightlifting, but I missed out on that opportunity. I knew nobody who did weightlifting. And then did I give you my book when you were out here in Jersey?
Yeah, you sent it to me. I got a copy in there.
Did you read? You probably don't remember, but read the story about Andre the Giant, who was the Romanian weightlifter in Israel that I met when I was 13, except he made me cry. And so he never taught me anything. And if he would have taught me, he was a teammate on the Romanian weightlifting team with Istvan Javorek, who you know, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So Istvan was his teammate when they were in their late teens, early 20s. They were on the national team. And I cried in this, gym he had in his house. And so basically he was probably like, fuck this chick and shit. I'm not teaching him shit. But that was 1989. And I always say, what would have happened to my wrestling and my life if during those 3 weeks in the summer of 89, if Andre the Giant would have said, come here in the morning, come here in the afternoon, you train with me. And the only thing he had his downstairs flat, what they called it a flat, which is basically like an apartment. You had like, the walk-in kitchen and living room and 2 bedrooms, but it was all weights in the different rooms, different equipment. But then in the corner was a squat stand. It was the roof cut out, or the ceiling was cut out to go overhead. And then the floor, he like cut it, and it was like rubber in there so he could drop the weights. I see him now I remember it because I remember the movie is in my mind. I remember him doing split jerks. I remember him doing snatches, deep squats. I remember him doing split jerks like very fast, like not holding it up, but just going bang, bang. And I remember in my mind saying, look at this idiot. He's going to hurt himself. You know, I read Flex magazine for 6 months, so I know everything. And I always say, man, can you imagine what it would have done for me if the beginning of my training was not Arnold's Encyclopedia, but it was this guy who escaped Romania communism, who was a national weightlifter. It would have changed my life. I don't know who or what I would have become from it, but oh man, I look back and I'm like, oh, if I get another chance at life, in my next life, maybe it'll work.
We're wrapping things up, but what are you most proud of?
Oh, that's a tough one because I'm super hard on myself. I never feel like I'm proud of this, and I struggle with that. I don't know. I don't feel like I'm so proud of the Underground Strength Gym. People will be like, look at this thing. It's known around the world. I'm like, it ain't good enough. And so I struggle with taking pride in I'm so proud of this. I really don't have, some people might say, well, that's kind of sad. That's just the way I am. I'm very tough on myself and I want better. I'd say, one thing I'm proud of is like, I've had a lot of ups and downs with business relationships, with life, just like anybody else. Things that should have and really could have stopped my business, stopped a lot of things. And I just feel like I'm unstoppable. Like you got to kill me to stop me from this. Like my gyms have gone through the recession, through this COVID, through a hurricane where, it destroyed the town. It's like, I feel I take a lot of pride in not quitting and that showing up when the chips are down, being very resilient. I take a lot of pride in that. Maybe is that different than being proud of it?
No, that's good. Same.
Yeah. So I take a lot of pride in that. And I like the question you asked me before about why I'm not better. And I'd say, I missed some opportunities and then environment. Some of these things we just can't control. And then I'd also say, like, sometimes an opportunity is presented to you, and I've turned down opportunities that could have made me better, but maybe weren't better for
the time,
family, the time, the business. And so there's a lot of, what ifs in there, right?
It's something I challenge you to do. I started doing this with my daughter when I put her to bed, my 7-year-old. Well, I do it both now, but with that, how you said, like, you always want things to be better and it's hard to find something you're proud of. So I can relate to that. I always, everything can be better, right? Like there's always a scale. There's always the next step. There's always the next step. So one thing I would ask her is I say, hey, what was your favorite part of the day? Like, what was your best part of the day today? And then she was, so then she always turns around though, like, what was your favorite part of the day? And I was like, oh shit, I don't know. Right. But then I followed it up with, okay, instead of saying what was the worst part of the day, I said, all right, if you could do the whole day over again, what would you do different? Right. So 2 questions every night. Like, what was your favorite part of the day? And then if you could do the day over, what would you do different? So it might be something for you to just, reflect on in the evening. So I bet if you do that 2-3 days in a row at night, I bet after those 2 or 3 days, someone asks you what's something you're proud of. I bet you think of something. Because now 3 days in a row, you've thought of like, what was the highlight of my day? If you go over the highlight of your day 3-4 days in a row, somewhere in there, you kind of realize like, okay, obviously I'm doing something good here. Obviously, you took your daughter to the doctor today. It's fucking Thursday. And at 1:00, you went to take your daughter to the doctor, right? That happened because you set up your life in a way to where if at 1:00 on a Thursday, she got a doctor appointment, you could take her. Right? You didn't have to call in sick today to do that, And so it's like things like that you overlook because it's just part of life, And so I think spend a little reflection might help you out there.
I need to do reflection. What's interesting, Danny, is I'm like very similar with you. Is like people were kind of asking me maybe a little differently. It was like, what's the barometer I measure it against? So I say I should be able to tell my kids everything I've done that day and they would be proud of me. They wouldn't be like, that's not good, or they're embarrassed by that. And so, but you're right. We become so busy as entrepreneurs and providers for the family, is that like you become like a soldier and you think you're just supposed to just seek and destroy, when really life is more about, you got to enjoy these times and moments. And this past summer, we probably like our favorite summer. We always go to Lake George, which is a lake in upstate New York, but we rented a boat, and that made the experience like better than ever. Like it was just seeing the lake and seeing nature. And I was like, we need more of this in our life. We need more of this kind of escape to nature, because it's like nature. It's like you can't go wrong when you're in it. So I gotta say, like, just having this conversation, one thing I'll put out there for probably a lot of entrepreneurs listening and coaches is, I don't want to have that regret that I've worked too much, and I work a lot. I want to get away from just saying, damn, I work too much. I don't like that feeling. But I think right now we're in a place, because of this COVID, I'm the only guy that can run the gym. Yeah. I got to do it. And so there's those times in life where you got to be John Rambo in First Blood.
Yeah. And I think that second question of like, if you do the day over, what would you do different, right? Like, you want to be better tomorrow. You got to say, okay, what would I have done? What went well today, and what could I have done better? If then that kind of helps you form the next day, right?
Yeah. Who kind of brought that up to you, or is that something you kind of came up with in your own mind?
I made it up. So my wife was asking her, it's like, what was the best part of your day? And then what was the worst part of your day? And I was like, well, I like this little reflection, but I don't like the worst part of the day. I think that's a shit way to think about things, right? Because like even a bad part of the day, like if you focus on the negative, whereas another way to look at that is like, what would you take control of it? Like, you're not a victim of shit. Like nothing happens to you, right? Like things happen that you're involved in. And then whether or not you learn and do better from that, or something changes from that, right? Yes. You can control that. Even if it's emotional resiliency. I mean, whenever you get hit by a car, obviously, like that wasn't, it's like, well, maybe you should have looked both ways better before, or maybe it's like, maybe there's nothing you could have done different, but it's like, well, what do you do going forward, right? And so, anyway, I think that just that what would you do better? So that's why I was like, well, okay, I really like that, Jess, but I'm going to change kind of the second part of this question. And so we've been doing that, and it's kind of a nice way to, at the end of the night, like when you're putting to bed, kind of wrap up the day and kind of gets their minds to wind down a little bit. And so that's kind of been.
It's great. I miss those ages of my kids, 7 and 3, or that's how kids are.
Yeah.
Great ages. It's like, I'm already like, oh man, my kids are going to be, my daughter will be in looking at colleges soon. Like this is crazy. This shit is cray.
For real. Where can people learn more about you? Someone who wants to say, I want to know more about Zach Even-Esh, where do they go?
We got the Strong Life podcast, anywhere podcasts are. I've got a free newsletter that people really love. Go to zachstrength.com. And then just if you Google Underground Strength or Zach Even-Esh or Underground Strength Coach, you'll come across my sites and social. I'm pretty active on all that stuff.
And that's Zach with a H. So
ZACHstrength.com. Yep.
There we go. All right. Zach, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you. This was awesome.
All right, man. Have a nice day.
Bye, guys. See you.
All right. See you, Zach. Thank you.
Later, guys.
Later.